Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is your Right Angle Lightning Round, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. And there's Scott, just all upset at me once again. You know, every 3 weeks this rolls around.
I was
Scott, you
smiling.
should be used to it by now. Oh, you were smiling. Oh, okay.
Like this.
Oh, yeah, that's a genuine, heartfelt, warm smile there. All right, in case you don't know, each of us hosts some in-depth topic once a week, but we rotate turns so that each of us also hosts a bonus segment every week, and I devote that to smaller stories that might not be worth the deep dive. So with no further ado, and if by smaller stories you mean headlines I plucked semi at random, you'd be absolutely right. So without further ado, let's start with Scott this week. I really like this headline. Democratic voters don't want to defund charter schools, even though every single one of their presidential candidates, I think, has promised or threatened to do just that. The headline or the lead says poll finds majority opposition to Sanders' Warren proposal to do just that, including, and I would say especially, Black and Latino voters. Scott, we have talked about making inroads with Black and Latino voters before. The Democrats keep setting us up for these inroads, and we never take advantage. What are we going to do?
I think we've had this conversation before on this show where I had an opportunity once to talk to the guy who was running for re-election for governor of Pennsylvania, and I told him that he should go. What's that?
I'd say, I'm remembering the story.
I told him he should go to downtown Philadelphia and stand on the steps of a failing public school and with his arm around a Latino woman and a black man and basically say, we've got to shut these failure factories down and give people the opportunity to send their kids to schools that they choose so that they can get the education that they deserve. I think that now that a combination of just the whole educational liberty movement through homeschooling and charter schooling and cyber schooling and all of that kind of stuff has kind of a critical nucleus of people. There are enough people involved in some form of that educational liberty movement now that people are starting to see that, yes, this can be a better choice. Does that mean that every charter school is better than every public school? No, it does not. It means that a charter school that fails is one that doesn't keep going. And that's the yes. difference. That's what people don't understand about charter schools. They think that we're making some pitch to say, well, charter schools are inherently better than public schools. They're not. However, if a public school is bad, it just keeps going and going and going. And it gets more money, but it doesn't get any better. And so charter schools are really dependent upon their ability to have a record of accomplishment and achievement among their students that draws parents to want to be part of that. And so the parents can make the choice to allocate their resources to those schools. So anyway, I think that there are now enough Democrats whose kids and grandkids and who have friends who have gone to these schools and realize that in some cases, it's your only ticket out. It's your only chance to break through a multi-generational trap of dependency that's been established not by the people themselves, but by the governors of those people in the sense of politicians. So, yeah, I think that the Democrats are making a major mistake if they're going hard after charter schools. If they wanted to say something like, you know what? We believe in a good public education, and so we want parents to have a choice of where to send their kids, but we're also going to hold these public schools accountable. If you're going to take government money to run a school system, you ought to have to be able to show results and to be able to reform your processes, not just for the protection of your teachers, but for the advancement of your students.
Exactly.
Hey, Steve, yeah. I just got to jump in on this because nobody closes the circuit on this argument. The question is, why do these Democrats want to close charter schools? Why? Why would you want to close a school opportunity? If it's a good school, bad school, why would you want to take away the choice? And the answer is because their primary support across the country is the public sector school teachers unions. Yep. And what they are doing is they're saying to hell with to inner city poor people, to hell with blacks and Hispanics and everybody else who's getting a crummy education. We're going to take that choice away from them so that we can maintain the political support that comes from these legions of teachers that don't want competition because it would mean they'd have to actually work harder.
Yeah, and the jobs might be at risk if they didn't. Bill, your turn. I love this one. I saw this yesterday morning. Michael Avenatti, you remember him.
I don't.
Oh, the porn star attorney.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Couldn't think of a more succinct way to put that. Michael Avenatti Googled the phrase insider trading before his Nike meeting, according to federal prosecutors. Celebrity attorney Avenatti did internet research on put options and insider trading before trying to extort millions of dollars from Nike Incorporated at that big meeting. This guy just can't help it, can he?
No, and this brings to mind the kind of the just the lie about the master criminal, the criminal mastermind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. James Bond kind of needs him. But when I was a kid growing up in the 60s, they had a bunch of these kind of, really cheesy sort of movies like called, Jack of Diamonds, Ace of Hearts, and it's like he guy leaves like a business. He leaves a Jack of Diamonds after he breaks in through the window and steals the diamonds. It's like, no, crime is for people who genuinely, it's not just that crime is for people who are stupid. It's for crime is for people that either don't have the ability to forecast, upcoming consequences of their actions, or they're so lazy that they just figure it's worth the risk to do it. This doesn't surprise me. I'll tell you what does interest me in this, though, is how did they find out that he had Googled this?
Interesting. Hey,
it's almost
Ed
like
Snowden. I think Ed Snowden can answer that question.
He might have some, yeah.
Yeah, but my point is, I have always felt, not that this is a defense, but I've always felt that all of this recording of data, all of it, from a technical point of view, does not actually harm your rights unless it's being used to prosecute you for something. And what I want to know is, how did they find out what this guy's Google search had been? Because to me, that's a much bigger issue than some, garden variety dirtbag trying to extort money from people. That happens all the time. How is it that they were able to determine that he's done this search unless they recorded all of his clicks, and they've recorded all of your clicks and mine and everybody else's? And then it starts to ask the question of, well, what happens if you're ever brought on trial for something and people bring up particular web searches you may have done that may not have anything to do with the crime you're accused of, although in this case I'm sure it probably did. You know what I mean? That's really actually kind of disturbing just to throw that out there. Like, by the way, he clicked on this.
Well, if he's a defendant in the case, Bill, then chances are the FBI either has the laptop, in which case they could get all that data because it's probably in the cache, or through that they could access his Google account, which tracks everything unless you tell it not to.
Yeah. Ooh. I don't like any of these options, actually. And
I hate
this guy. I'm old enough to remember when he was considered a top contender for the Democrats' 2020 presidential nomination. The glory days of mid-2018. All right, Scott, back to you. National Security Council aid handling book approvals. They got to get these when people in government publish books, you got to get security clearance approval. The National Security Council aid in charge of handling book approvals, like John Bolton's, is the twin brother of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. And to refresh your memory, Yevgeny Vindman is the identical twin brother of Alexander Vindman, one of the Democrats' main witnesses in the impeachment inquiry.
Have they ever been seen in public together? That's what I want to know.
Like Superman and
yes,
Clark Kent.
I've seen a picture of them. One's in uniform and one's not, and they look like the Soy twins.
Yeah, but come on.
I wasn't thinking
this
Superman
whole thing's
and
corrupt
Clark
on the face of it.
I wasn't thinking Superman and Clark Kent. It was more Frank Zappa and Leon Redbone, which is, where my mind goes.
Nice.
Well, yeah, and there are a lot of Republicans today, specifically as we record this, who are wondering why they were not aware that the National Security Council was in the process of vetting this book that John Bolton and his publishers sent over for review. So it wasn't like they were hiding it from the White House or anything. And so now there are some Republicans in the Senate who are beginning to wonder, well, what other things are in this book that we don't know about that the New York Times didn't get, a secondhand information about? It is a fascinating idea that you would have to go through official government censors if you've ever worked in the government. Ideally, you'd think that those people themselves have been vetted. And let me just say this. Even if they're identical twins, and no matter what you think of his brother, that doesn't damn this guy. So, he's an individual human being. It's not like Chang and Eng Bunker who are, attached and two heads coming out of one body or something like that. Even they had different personalities, those Siamese
what about
twins.
the whole concept of recusal, just to eliminate the appearance of impropriety or corruption?
I don't understand what you just said at all because I've been listening to things about Joe Biden for the last year and a half.
Well, okay, when my brother is investigating the impeachment and somebody sends a book for me to put my approval on that no top secret information is going to get leaked, shouldn't I go, you know what? I should pass this one off to my underling Dave.
Only,
He's fully qualified, and I shouldn't be seen doing this. It looks bad, Steve, even though I'm a good guy.
That's like imagining that Joe Biden is going to say, hey, Mr. President, it would be a real honor for me to head up this whole Ukraine thing. But as it turns out, my son is on the board of directors of Burisma. And so even though there would be no real conflict of interest here, it's not going to look good. And I think I'm going to step aside for the good of the country and for your presidency.
I don't claim to have met every single pair of identical twins in the world, but I have not met a pair of identical twins who were radically different in outlook ever. They were always raised together, spent all their time together. I found them to be remarkably basically coherent relative to each other's viewpoints.
Let me just say, anywhere else in the world, this would be a startling news story. If you said that in any other town in the United States, it would be a startling news story. But to find out that in Washington, D.C., something like this went on, well, of course, it's like an incestuous cesspool. It's just everybody's in everybody else's underwear there.
Actually, Scott, I have no idea what you just said because after Bill started talking, all I could think of were those brunette Doublemint twins, and I'm just going to be pretty much useless for the rest of the day. Where was
Troubling.
Yeah, Bill's nodding. He knows.
They wore the same bathing suits, you may notice.
I did. I did notice.
Case proven.
All right, Bill, let's wrap up with you. In 5-4 ruling, Supreme Court allows Trump plan to deny green cards to those who may need government aid. That's the NBC News headline saying it's like a bad thing. Do you think Cloward-Piven are the hardest hit from this decision?
I don't understand I don't understand what he actually did.
What it is, it's basically going back to something we were doing back in colonial days, which is an immigration system where it says you have to be able to support yourself before we let you into the country. We're not just going to let you go on welfare right away. No public assistance. Right. And sort of means testing for immigration. The Supreme Court has said, of course, that's fine. This has been going on for a very long time. To not do it is kind of weird. And I just wanted to make this night a little reference to Cloward-Piven, if you will remember the...
I will absolutely remember Cloward-Piven. Two professors, left-wing leaning individuals who've decided that the best way to destroy America would be to overload its social services, make them so taxed to the point where they will simply collapse, at which point there'll be anarchy. And then when anarchy happens, the government will take over. And then when the government takes over, we'll be in charge and not those people have their own guns and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Lovely people. And are they still alive?
I don't know. The Cloward-Piven thing is almost as old as I am, I think.
Yeah. Well, if they're not... they're not suffering from frostbite. Let's put it that way. In any event, this is the entire strategy of the left and on how they've accomplished everything they've accomplished. They basically use our decency against us by putting together a case where you leave out enough points so that it just seems like sheer brutality and cruelty that no one could possibly tolerate. And then you find out the truth is a little different. And this is the exact same thing you see when you see pictures of little Hispanic girls with their little fingers through the wire on these detention camps with tears streaming down their face. And you look at this and you go, this is not right. And then in another photograph, which was not supposed to be released, you find out it's not actually a cage. It's something that somebody brought as a prop. The little kids were sent behind it to have a picture because there's no other sides to it. It's just a thing. And then you realize maybe this whole thing is not quite so heart-wrenching as we're led to believe. Maybe the whole heart-wrenching angle is being used to cover up the fact that there's somebody wants to do something for political power and they don't have any cogent argument for it. So they have to go to this kind of maudlin sort of appeal, which is effective. That's it. It's effective.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad, but true. To use a people's generosity against them is just, it's the height of evil, the low of evil, maybe I should say. It's just so incredibly, incredibly wrong. I'm going to finish up with a headline that you're not going to believe, but I swear I didn't make it up. I swear it's not from the Babylon Bee or the Onion. But we have any Monty Python fans watching. One of my favorite sketches was the tax on thingy sketch, where the bureaucrats had gotten together and decided to put a tax on thingy. The idea being that we tax all kinds of things that people enjoy doing. We tax cigarettes, we tax alcohol, so why not put a tax on, well, you know. New York. This just in. New York requires citizens to obtain stargazing permit to admire the stars in public parks. No, I'm not making this up. This is a real thing. It's happening in New York because I guess California didn't think of it first. What do you do? No, officer, I swear I was gazing at the top of the tree line and no higher. What? I got nothing. I've run out of words because you cannot satirize this. Every Monty Python sketch is now 50 years old, at least from the original TV series, and every single one of them is coming true. And with that, rest in peace, Terry Jones. I'm going to miss you, man.
To deprive all of those citizens of the richness of the New York sky, at nighttime, is just the wealth of stuff that's visible in the pitch blackness of Central Park.
These are Heinlein's crazy years, folks. We just live in them. All right, that's your lightning round for this week, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Content like this needs sponsors like you, so please click on over to BillWhittle.com and become a member. We'd love to have you on board, and you will just feel pride in knowing that you have become a sponsor of whatever this was. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.